Hey, what's up guys? I'm Jake the Lawn Kid. Thanks for coming back for yet another video. Today I'm here to tell you that judging by what I'm seeing with the soil temperatures, it is time to put down our pre-emergent herbicide. Are you guys excited? Because I know I sure am.
I'm so excited!
So the biggest question I'm going to get right now is going to be, when would I start putting down my crabgrass pre-emergent? I've actually answered this in a couple of videos past, and that is when soil temperatures hit 50 degrees. Now a lot of you might ask, well, how do you gauge that? And if you want to find out, I actually did a video a couple weeks ago showing you guys all the details you need to know and all the methods you can use on how to find out what your soil temperature currently is. So if you want to find that video, I'll leave it here in the eye in the top right corner, and I'll also leave it in the description below as well. Once the soil temperatures hit 50 to 55 degrees, you're good to go. Now the biggest misconception that I see with a lot of homeowners nowadays, especially when the soil temperatures hit 50 to 55 degrees, is that they do want to start to do some seeding, which does make some sense, right? You guys think, alright, I'm getting warmer, my lawn's a little bit thin, I want to throw on some seed to fill in the bare spots, which is totally fine, but I don't recommend you do it. Nowadays, I try to stay away from seeding as much as possible, and I focus more on what I can do to actually build my soil to make it healthy so that my lawn can get all the nutrients it needs, so it could push deeper roots and grow a healthier top stand so that it can better resist diseases on its own and also fill in bare areas itself a lot quicker. I don't recommend you seed in the spring. Again, it'll work. You'll get good results. You water it every day, you'll be fine. But in the long term, it's not worth it, because once summer kicks in and we stop getting as much rain as we're used to getting here in the spring, things are going to dry up and all of that seed that has grown has not fully established, and because of that, it's going to diminish. Now, if you're going to seed, I recommend waiting till the fall, because if you do it in the fall, you're actually going to give your lawn more time to establish as the temperatures trend down, which the lawns are all about up here. That's like their party zone, right? So as the temperatures go down, the lawn is going to have more time to establish, and it's also going to establish a lot better. Don't seed in the spring, wait till the fall. Now, if you do decide to seed a little bit in the spring, then that's totally fine. But I want you guys to realize that if you seed, it's going to change the way that you're able to put down a preventative for crabgrass. Let me explain. So the best way for me to explain this in layman terms would be to look at a side view of the lawn. So here we have our turf, we have our soil line, and we have our roots. And these red dots here represent crabgrass seeds. Now the way a pre-emergent works, once it gets into the soil, it forms a chemical barrier here at the soil surface. And what happens is, once these crabgrass seeds begin to grow, right, and they hit that chemical barrier, it's going to disrupt the growth pattern and render them powerless to grow. Now keep in mind, the reason I tell you not to seed in the spring is because once those little seedlings are watered into the soil and you've just applied this chemical barrier, once they grow and hit that barrier, it can disrupt their growth pattern as well. Alright, so when it comes to choosing a pre-emergent, there's actually two very popular products on the market, prodiamine and dithiopyr. Prodiamine goes under the trade name Barricade, and dithiopyr goes under the trade name Dimension. Prodiamine is a lot better for early season control. Now why do I say that? Because once it's applied and it forms that barrier, it actually has a sticking agent, which means it'll stick a lot better and it'll be more resilient against environmental factors like very light foot traffic and heavy rains that we do get a lot here in the spring. Now where dithiopyr shines is it provides us a little bit of post-emergence control, which means it will kill some weeds a little bit later in its life. It only does it to a certain extent. It'll only kill crabgrass that is not past the second tiller stage. Anything like the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiller stage, that has to be taken care of with alternatives such as selective herbicides, and we'll be talking a lot more about that here in the future. So stay tuned and make sure you subscribe for that. Okay, so when it comes to application methods, you can do both liquid and granular, so that's nice. It gives us a little bit of flexibility. Let me just show you a little bit of the differences between the two. Liquid and granular, okay, the one thing I really like about liquid that granular doesn't have is that it's better targeted. You can also target areas of your lawn more selectively, and what I mean by that is, say you wanted to do spring seeding, like in an area right here, and say another area up here. You could still blanket your entire lawn, but be very careful as if to keep all of your liquid away from these areas where you decide to do a little bit of seeding. Whereas with a granular, you're putting it out with a broadcast spreader, especially if you're on one of my programs. And when you apply with a broadcast spreader, a lot of you guys know who've done it before that you're covering an oblong area, and because of that, there really is no selective targeting and your product goes everywhere. And because of that, you can't do any spot seeding in areas that are thin. So you might have to wait until the fall for those. So the cool thing about liquids that granular doesn't provide is that there is a little bit of a compromise, and we can do a little bit of spring seeding if we want to. However, where granular really does shine is going to be on windy days, because the one thing about liquids, even though they are more selectively targeted, that can also be a disadvantage, because on a windy day they're more likely to drift off and damage something else in your landscape. So it's very important to keep that in mind, that on a windy day you don't have to deal with that when it comes to granulars. I mean, you will have a little bit go off target, but because of the fact that granulars have weight, you don't have to worry about that. So if you decide to go with a granular pre-emergent, which by the way is a great choice if you're a beginner, because it takes away a lot of the confusion that goes with mixing liquids, one thing I want you to make sure is that you buy a crabgrass preventer that is by itself, meaning no FERT value whatsoever in it. Now that's one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of people make, and the reason I say that is because we don't want to synthetically push any growth right now because of the fact that the lawns are just waking up. We want to let it, wake up, do its thing, use up nutrients that we just put in last fall. And so far my lawn is doing really good with that. In fact, it's actually a little bit greener now compared to the neighbors. And we want to just allow our lawns to wake up, and then as soon as it greens up, we can start pushing it again. As far as formulations go, the lowest I was able to find was a 007, which means that it does contain a little bit of potash. As far as potash goes, I don't want you guys to worry about it. It just acts really as a carrier. It actually adds weight to the granules so that they can evenly spread as you spread them. Another cool thing about potash is it's actually going to build the structure in our plants and make them stronger so that they're able to better withstand disease and stress that I know we're going to see a lot of here coming up in the summer. As far as application rates go, this bag is a 50-pound bag and it covers 10,000 square feet. Therefore, I'm going to put it down at the highest rate I can possible, and that's going to be about 5 pounds per thousand. That way I'm going to use just about half this bag, and I'm going to put the rest away and store it and use it again next season. That's right, guys, you can do that with pre-emergents. As long as you keep them in a cold, dark place, you can store them and use them again next year, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So 5 pounds per thousand, that's about the heaviest rate I'm going to get, and I'm going to be able to stay within the yearly maximum, which is going to be about 9.3 pounds per thousand. The last thing I recommend you do is that you water in your application within an hour of application at the latest. The reason being is that if we don't water our application in and we let our granules sit in the direct sunlight, they will actually degrade in the sun, thus we will lose some efficacy of our product. So it's very important that you water this in as soon as you apply to make sure that you get the full efficacy of the product. As far as how much to water, just make sure that you get down a good half-inch. Again, time may vary depending on your system. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what I touched on in today's video, then please be sure to check the links in the description below. And with that, I'm Jake the Lawn Kid. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next week.